What's up, y'all? You tuned in to part 4. Let's get started.
And yeah, okay, so right away, as I'm sure you saw, I panned guitars left and right, and I hard panned them for now. I'm probably not going to keep them hard panned, but it's important that I push that in that direction right now because that's what I'm going to do later. And you don't have to do that, but it opens up the sound a little bit more. There's less stuff in the center that's fighting with the vocal. And I also, so I panned these. There's not going to be too much stuff on the left and right, and we'll talk about mono compatibility later. It's not as important as it was a long time ago because everyone listens in stereo for the most part now. No one's really listening with one speaker. It's still important that what you do comes across well in one speaker, but we'll talk about that later. So that's good. Let's move on to drums right now while we're at it, and we're going to talk about another thing called phase, which is super important. And I'm also, this is a shortcut. I'm going to start giving more shortcuts and key commands as we go till the end of the video here. But so Command G groups, and it'll bring up this group dialog box. You can type in drums. I'm going to subgroup a few of these. I'll do that right now. I'm going to subgroup overheads because overheads are going to be processed the same. And you could keep this a stereo track. You could make this a stereo track. I have a lot of friends who prefer that. I personally like having them be separate tracks just in case level-wise they're not right. And especially since I didn't engineer this. If I did, maybe I would do stereo track if I'm feeling very lucky. I'm feeling very good that I can eyeball it to the point that everything is perfectly fine. But if I'm getting tracks from someone else, I like having it separate just in the event that the levels aren't the same, that I can easily adjust that I don't have to go bring it out and then bring it back up. And it's so easy to duplicate plugins. The duplicate key is Option. So if you hold Option and then drag, you can do it with everything. So like, let's say I want to duplicate this, you just Option drag. See that? It just moves across. It's wild. We're going to do kick 2. So this is the kick. All right. We're going to turn on drums. So this, you can see the cursor moves across the whole thing. And we're going to zoom in and we're going to increase the waveform. So you do Command Option and left bracket above the apostrophe key next to the P. We'll decrease it, but we're going to use the right bracket actually to increase it. And let's take a look here. So R and T, zooming. I don't know if I brought that up, but okay. So right away we can take a look at the kick, and the kick is in phase, which is awesome. And it's in absolute phase too. So absolute phase, to my understanding, is, so you see the waveform here, how it moves up and then down like a sine wave. That is good, and you should try to have all of your waveforms do that if you can. But they also should be in phase with one another. See this down here? See the overheads? How they start low and then come up? That's bad. And we're going to change that. See how you can see it's kind of, it's out of phase with the room right there. But the room looks a little tough to decide. I'm gonna say that you can also see the snare here too. Let's go to a snare hit. So snare, yeah, okay. This is good. So phase, when you have two microphones pointing at each other, like snare top and snare bottom, one mic is pointing down at the snare drum from the top, and another is pointing up at the snare drum from the bottom. They're both facing each other. They're both going to cancel each other out, and that's what you don't want. You don't want one going up and one going down at the same time. It's really bad. It will cause cancellation, and you'll hear a weird cancellation of sound that shouldn't exist, and you'll lose low end. So we don't want that. So I'm gonna pull up the invert box here, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn off snare, and usually, we're gonna invert overheads first, because I know I want to invert those, and then that's good, because that should now be in phase with our kick, which is super important. Yeah, that's way better. And now, I think what we're gonna want to do is, it's tough to say, it's tough to say. I think we're gonna go the route, I usually have it going down first for snare, and I think we're gonna stay with that. So we're gonna do this. If it sounds weird, we'll flip it. But let's take a listen to the drums. Go here, do all that. The low ends right away is awesome, and I've done this. I haven't really showed you what it sounded like before, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna Command Z a bunch of stuff. So that's all normal. And what I did, so I inverted the snare drum bottom and the overhead. So this is what it sounds like before. Now here's with it. There's so much more low end, which is great. Okay, so feeling pretty good. I'm gonna keep an eye on the room mic, because it's kind of hard to tell. I think it's in phase right now, but there's some spots, see that, where it's up. There's also some spots where it's up and everything's up. So kind of tough call. I mean, the room mic, wherever it is, unless you like strictly followed the ratios of distance with microphones, room mic's gonna be a little phasey, and that's okay. Having a little bit of a phase relationship, as long as it's not canceling out completely, that's okay. You can have a little bit of cancellation. That makes the sound a little unique. As long as it's not really, I mean, the room's not going to be heavy in the forefront. And it's important to have a room mic too, especially with drums, because it captures the natural room of the environment you're in, and that's going to be way more useful than any reverb plugin. So even if it's just one mic, and this is one mic, it's not a stereo pair, having that blend with that is going to make so much more of a difference. And let's take a listen to the kicks, so we can see if we can decipher what kick is which. Okay, still a little bit of bleed. Interesting. This one has more bleed but sounds more beatery to me. This one's more low end. Interesting. Okay, we'll keep our eye on that. I'm not sure what he did here. We'll have to ask and confirm, but I think we're going to keep that in mind. And, you know, this is a great time to show the comments box here. So we're going to say kick more beater. More body. Yeah.
And that was part 4. Thanks for tuning in and watching. So close to being done with episode 1. Part 5 out soon. Be sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. Stay up to date with all my future videos. Thanks for watching.